everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And we're going to start this episode with a tip of the week. And I think Joy has a fabulous one to tell you.
Okay, so my tip has no specific stories behind it, like a lot of our tips, but I had saw it earlier and I thought it was a good idea. If you work at like customer service or a front-facing kind of job, like a help desk or something, or maybe at the grocery store or something where people would see you possibly be angry, they say to put a mirror behind you, because if you put a mirror behind you, the person can see themselves and they're more likely to calm down when they see themselves looking ridiculous, like screaming and things like that.
Yeah, and do you know what? I think I've seen that in shops. Maybe not shops these days, but I seem to remember as a kid going into shops and there'd always be like some kind of mirrored tiling behind a customer service desk.
Well, if you think about it, I worked at a call center for years, did tech support. I was a manager there. And people are much more likely to be mean when you're not face to face. Even just the idea of seeing faces usually makes people calm down. So then if they're seeing their face, I could see it go even further. Plus, I mean, no one wants to see themselves looking rabid behind them. So.
Exactly. Well, that's the whole thing about like posting on the internet, isn't it? Because people are anonymous and they start getting in fights with people. But if you was really with that person in the street, you probably wouldn't do that.
Yeah, and I think that it's gotten better. When the internet first started, late 90s, Tim, it was like the Wild Wild West up in there. Like you could say anything on one of those blogs or like, you know what I mean? And nobody knew. Now you can kind of track people down by their Facebook and that kind of stuff, or LinkedIn pages, which is why so many people get canceled nowadays. But like, yeah, back when it first started, it was even crazier. I think Tim used to even have his own website, so he's probably seen some of that.
I did. I had Caesar.org.uk, which doesn't exist anymore. And then I had a website called Caesar's Rants. Basically, I invented social networking before it was a thing. This was on the internet way before MySpace or Friendster or any of that stuff. And really, it was just like a guest book type thing. Where you would post something and then people could reply to it. And it was just like a big long chain. And there was no like staggered posting. You know, one person would just the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. But a lot of my friends and people I knew used to post to it. And the premise is you used to say you'd want to rant about something, but then you'd have to contradict yourself. So you'd like say, I'd like to rant about my new car. It doesn't drive well. It uses too much fuel and it's too expensive. And then you'd say, by way of contradiction, it's a very attractive vehicle.
I like that there's like an extra, like I can't just rant. I have to put something logical in there. Good job,
Yeah,
Tim.
exactly. And then this went on for a while. And then it mostly was that, but it divulged into all kinds of nonsense and jokes and funny pictures. And then people worked out how to post HTML in it and put pictures in it. And then stuff would happen. Like there was a couple we knew that were going through like a messy, not divorce, but like splitting up. And then one would post one thing and another thing would post another thing. And I'd get a phone call from one of them and said, oh, so-and-so's posted that thing. Can you remove it? And then it really it went from being something that was fun and it ended up just being a mess. And
it's
I ran
before moderators.
Yeah. And I ran it for 5 years, 6 years, something like that. And I felt at some point I was done with it because I got fed up with having to remove posts and there was lots of... It started getting a bit nasty in a few places. So completely unannounced, I just wound the whole thing up.
That's kind of funny. I mean, yeah, that's basically what I'm saying. It was back during the Wild West days. All right, Tim, do you have a tip for everybody?
Yeah, my tip is very simple, but I think it's something that's overlooked by a lot of people. And this is... always back up your data. Now, if you have a computer or a computer user or a smartphone user, and I'd imagine some of our listeners would be using some of those devices. Possibly. You know, I don't know.
No, we're putting this on the 8-track, Tim.
There we are. Or laser disc.
There you go.
CED disc or something. I don't know. But anyhow... if you use any of those devices, always back up your data. Now, I have a very overcomplicated backup scheme involving external drives and storing
them. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Fireproof safes. But I carry, well, I don't carry with me, but I have at least 2 complete offsite backups to my data anytime.
They're going to think that Tim's on like a member of like some special agency or something before this is done. All right.
But I mean, that's extreme because my entire world is on my machine.
Yeah.
But, for most people, if you have the option to use Google Pictures, or even if you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, you get Amazon Pictures as part of that subscription. So dump all your pictures in there, because then it's backed up. Or if you have a computer and you have documents on there, tax documents, things like that, just buy yourself a little portable hard drive, plug it in, back your stuff up once in a while, and just disconnect it.
Yep. And like if you have an Android, like it should link to your Google accounts. Just make sure everything is uploading there, just in case.
Sure, and their storage is not that expensive. You can get 100 gig for $2 a month or something. Yeah. It's not expensive. But really think about doing that, because I've helped people with computers, not only at work, but personal, where people will bring you a laptop and they say, oh, my university course is on here, and my daughter's first picture is on here, and this, that, the other. And then the hard drive is completely toast, and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, and where my husband used to own a cell phone and computer repair store. I've told him this for many years. That was a very common one. And once it's gone, it's gone. It's not like he had a magic wand to bring it back. You're just out of luck.
Yeah, I mean, you can send hard drives to data recovery companies, and sometimes they can recover the stuff, but it's incredibly expensive.
Yeah. And my favorite, though, Tim, my favorite story was this girl. She came in and she needed she wanted a screen replacement on this old cell phone, right? And Charlie used to just buy the full piece so he didn't have to pull up just the, like, you know what I mean? Like he'd do like the digitizer and everything that's in it and just replace the LCD. Well, she brought it in. He gets it replaced. He hands it back to her. That was the job. A lot of iPhones, it's very easy to replace the screens. So, 20 minutes later, here's your phone back. Well, when she gets it, she doesn't know the password. So then she asked the security question. The security question was from when she was like 12 and she made a fake security question. So she didn't know the security question. She ended up paying Charlie to fix the screen on it because he had already done that. Like he did his part. Like she paid $200 to fix the screen. Apple locked herself out, and Apple will not help you in that case.
No, if you can't pass the activation thing, you're on your own.
Yeah. And Charlie was just like, and she kept asking Charlie, was there anything he could do? And she's like, well, I mean, no, I just thought it's funny. She brought that in to activate it, but then couldn't get assigned into it. After he fixed the screen, she decided that was going to be a problem.
Yeah, well, she should have backed her stuff up, or backed up a password, or made proper security questions or something like that.
Yeah. Remember back in the day when they used to tell us, like, don't use your real name and your real birthday, your real this, Tim. And you always I remember I used to use like a fake name when I was like 12, and now like my whole life's on the internet.
I know. Things have moved on.
All right. What's next, Tim?
Okay. So I'm just going to do a quick CD of the week for our podcast friends and for our friends on YouTube. Now, we are growing our YouTube channel, and we've been sharing our CD of the weeks. And sometimes we do a CD of the week and it doesn't even make it onto the podcast. So it's like a little extra bonus if you join us over on YouTube. So this week, I am going with the soundtrack album to Electric Dreams. Now, as we've said, Electric Dreams is one of my favorite films of all time. Many would say it hasn't stood the test of time. Many would say that it's a very cheesy 80s film with a questionable plot. But I don't care. It's
Does
one of
that
my
matter?
No, it's one of my favorite films of all time. Hannah has seen that film with me recently, and she said the girl should have gone off with the computer, not the geeky man.
What did she try to tell you, Tim?
Well, I met my wife on the internet, so at some point I did live inside a computer. So the
irony is I met my husband on the internet. So, Tim, here we are.
There we are. But this is a great soundtrack album. I mean, it is a time capsule of 80s music. I mean, it's got P.P. Arnold, Jeff Lynne. It has a couple of Culture Club songs on there. Giorgio Moroder, and then, of course, the classic Together in Electric Dreams, which is Giorgio Moroder and Phil Oakey. And that was, I think, a hit. Even outside of the film, I think it was a hit.
I've heard that one outside of the film. And I only learned about the film a few years back when Charlie was talking to Tim. I don't know, we were video chatting about something, and Charlie mentioned movies, and he mentioned it to him, and Charlie went and found it. And then I've watched it probably like 4 times since then. So
yeah, I like it. It's a real, I said, time capsule of that time. But I said the music is great, and I think even if the film is not something that would appeal to you, if you like 80s pop and you like sort of a more kind of electronic 80s pop, This is a really good album. The cool thing is the song Electric Dreams, which opens the film, which is by P.P. Arnold. Peter Frampton is playing guitar on it.
Huh. That's kind of random, honestly.
Yeah, is it? That's something you get from when you read the liner notes. Now, I bought my original copies of this in Menzies newsagent in Hounslow High Street, opposite Nationwide, where I used to work. But I think this came from eBay or something.
I like how Tim said all those words like they meant anything to me.
Do you mean to say you never went to John Menzies newsagent and bought, I don't know, a copy of the Daily Mirror or something?
No, I have not. I honestly don't think, though, even if I went, that I'd want to buy a copy of the Daily Mirror. But that's personal preference.
It's a terrible newspaper. All those tabloids are appalling. It was the first thing that came into my brain.
Sorry, everybody. Joy turned off the sound of her computer.
We'll keep this in, Joy. As I said, we sometimes edit, but sometimes we just keep this stuff in.
That's fair. Let me close out of Facebook so it doesn't bing at me anymore. Everybody. All right. It's gone.
But there we are. Anyhow, this is my CD pick of the week.
All right. There we go.
Fantastic.
Sorry, Tim.
Yeah, I was going to say, so this week's episode is Joy's turn to pick the topic. What do you have for us, Joy?
All right. So this is a No Name Music Cast exclusive, first time, whatever you want to call it, something we've never done before. Yay. So anyway, what we are going to do is I have made Tim come up with 10 songs. And this is I kind of felt weird saying this, but if you were like, and I'll explain where the story for this came from, because we had a whole story at home about this, but I had picked 10 songs. Like if he knew it was his last day on Earth, there was a meteor flying straight to his house, and he had 2 hours or whatever to listen to music. What songs would he pick? So I want Tim to discuss those songs, tell us why. And then next time I'm going to do the exact same scenario, but I didn't want us to go back and forth. I wanted Tim to be focused on this week, and then I'll do my section next week. So these are a complete surprise to me.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Tim?
It does indeed. So we woke up and we put on the news or something, NPR, and they're like, there's a massive unprecedented meteor heading towards Christiansburg, Virginia, and duck and cover. That's it. It's the end of the world as we know it, and it's 3 times the size of the Earth, and all that kind of stuff.
Insert REM. It's the end of the world as we know it. No, is it REM? That's the end of the world as we know it. Whoever sings that, that's what it's
REM.
Okay. After I said that, I was like, is it the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones? Did I get that wrong? Okay. Anyway, so yes. So Tim is going to give us his songs. We're going to discuss them, and he's going to explain to us why, if the world were ending, he'd want to hear this song. All right, Tim, what is your first choice?
Well, before I get into the actual list, I should say that having 10 songs for this scenario is an incredibly tall order, because it's like, where do you pick? Do you pick your favorites, or do you pick songs that are important to you? Or even maybe not even songs that are super important, but have a memory associated with them that you want to trigger that memory before this massive meteor arrives.
And if you're my husband, you do the complete opposite. So I was telling Charlie about this idea, right? After I wrote you saying, hey, I was like, gosh, I just gave Tim a long thing to think about over the next 24, 48 hours. And I was like, and my husband started playing the songs he would play, and they were all just like super melancholy. Like he's like, yeah, because when the meteorites always like hit people in movies, this is the song they play. And I'm like, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the song I want to hear. So you could take it a different way too. All right. So with that in mind, I picked my 10, and I think each one of them has a story or a reason, as well as being a favorite song. Okay.
So this might seem incredibly random indeed. But my first song that I've picked is by Cliff Richard, and it's the song Wired for Sound. Now, are you familiar with Cliff Richard's Wired for Sound?
That song, but I'm not familiar with, like, I think because you've talked about it, I've looked it up before, but I don't think I've heard anything else from him. I'm just going to be honest.
Okay, well, he's known as the Peter Pan of pop. He is somebody who's had a number one hit in every decade since the 50s. He's still out there making music. I think he's in his late 70s at this point. But, you know, he's seen as some kind of he's one of these untouchable icons. You know, I should have on that Unknown in the USA episode. Or maybe I should have substituted Tom Jones for Cliff Richard.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe I do know him. I just don't know. Like, I've heard the songs. I just don't know it's him.
Yeah.
It's very possible.
And he's one of those people that's an icon in the UK. And when I say icon, he's somebody who your mother would probably like rather than probably most people would like. But certainly everyone would know who Cliff Richard was.
Okay.
And as I think it came up in a previous episode,
yeah.
He is known in Portugal for his wine.
That's when I looked him up. I think that's what brought it up before.
Exactly. So anyway, I chose by Cliff Richard the song Wired for Sound. And the reason I chose Wired for Sound is because as well as being a great song, and I really enjoy this song, I like it because my mum likes it, and she had that album growing up. And in addition, Wired for Sound, I remember it being on a UK kids breakfast show thing on a Saturday called Swap Shop, which was hosted by Noel Edmonds. Now, Noel Edmonds has turned into a little bit of a... I'm trying to think of a word that's not offensive, but...
He didn't age well?
Yeah, he's had some wacky ideas in his later life. Anyhow, he used to have this program called Swap Shop, and it was incredibly popular. It was a huge cultural icon of the 80s. And I remember them playing the video for this on Swap Shop. And when this was a hit, it was a thing. And I also seem to remember Cliff Richard being in the studio, and they'd do phone-ins and things like that. So the reason I went with this is because it connects me to my dear mum, and it also connects me to my very early years when I was very much younger and Swap Shop was on the TV and I was at school and stuff like that. So I was starting at the beginning of my journey by having a piece of music that would kind of put all that stuff together.
Bring yesteryear back when the volcano beside you about to erupt or something, right?
Yeah, we go for the purposes of this exercise, we are going with Meteor.
Meteor. That seems more accurate. Well, I don't think we'd be Pompeii.
No, it's some kind of ridiculous sized meteor that we don't know where it came from, and NASA are baffled.
It was probably, but the good thing is we have Elon Musk on our side, so I think we'll make it, Tim.
Well, he'll probably buy the meteor, then we won't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible. I can't blame him if he does. All right. Tim went very serious with the first song. I'm curious to see what he did for the second one.
Okay. So for the next one, I'm moving through my personal journey. Some of these songs follow my personal journey and some don't, but this song is written by a gentleman called Stu Phillips, who's a famous TV composer, producer, worked on a lot of different music. He was responsible for a lot of the music of the Monkees as well, and a lot of like TV shows he wrote music for and performed music for. Battlestar
Galactica, I think.
I believe so, yes.
Yep.
However, for my second pick for this Meteor episode, how could I not go with the main title of the theme of Knight Rider?
I knew where it was going. I didn't say the Knight Rider because I'm like, it's going to be the Knight Rider song. It has to be. If you guys know anything about Tim, like this would be like as the meteorite is flying to his house, I would imagine this just like blailing out the window, just like as loud as he could, just for good measure. He had to go. That's how it goes.
And see, I had to have it because... So, I mean, yeah, there are better songs out that I could have picked. Yeah. However, it's such an important thing to me. Again, it's one of those... I like it because it's a connection to my youth and it's a connection to the current day. I loved it when I was a kid. And I went through a period in the early 2000s where I didn't watch it so much. But as of late, I've really become engrossed in the world of Knight Rider. There is a Knight Rider YouTube channel called the Knight Rider Historians where they buy up props and discuss them. He has 2 screen-used cars, and he's doing an episode-by-episode thing where he goes through every episode and deep dives into the vehicles used and the plots and where it was filmed and nonsense. And for a geek like me, it's absolutely fantastic. So to have the theme to Knight Rider in this apocalypse list, I have to have it because it's such a thing I really enjoy. You know, there are people, I mean, not that I feel I even have to justify this, but there are people in the world that get pleasure out of dressing up in Star Trek uniforms.
Sure.
People go to, I just really like Knight Rider. I can't even justify it. And I don't even need to justify it. It's what I like.
You know, I was thinking, like, if there was ever I always think about this, TV shows where you go out and you prove your knowledge of something. And when you prove your knowledge of something, you win a bunch of money. Tim would go on some TV show that's about 80s classics and be like, Knight Rider, Knight Rider, Knight Rider. And they would ask him everything but Knight Rider. Like, how did that happen? You know what I mean? I always say, like, if I went on one of those Name the Lyrics shows, I'd go on there and they'd all be polka music. And I'd be like, are you kidding me right now?
Well, there's a show in the UK called Mastermind. Well, maybe there is a US show that's similar. I don't know. But It's very famous. It used to be hosted by a guy called Magnus Magnusson, who was an Icelandic chap. And you would go on there and it's lots of general knowledge questions. And then you'd have a specialist subject. And traditionally, the specialist subject would be like, I don't know, Dutch architecture from 1725 to 1750. People would have these obscure topics. But in later years, I think Magnus Magnusson doesn't host it anymore. I don't know if he's even still alive. But people have had more contemporary topics for their specialist subject. And there was one recently where some guy, specialist subject was Alan Partridge.
Well, there you go, Tim. You just need to get on there and see if they'll let you do a Knight Rider part. Exactly. You could do the Alan Partridge one pretty well too, though. Yeah,
I saw the Alan Partridge round and I got 90% of it right. Some of the later Partridge, I've lost interest in it, but it's not as classic as early Partridge.
I will say, my mom made me watch Jeopardy every day. I don't know. Do they have Jeopardy in the UK or is it just an American thing?
I think they probably show it now, but traditionally it's just an American thing.
Well, if you don't know, it's just a game show where they ask you questions and you answer, right? It's just, and it can be on different categories. And every time I do really well, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so smart. And then I realized that I always did well when it was like the teen one. It was designed for young kids because they would have like a teen one. And I'd be like, oh my God, I could totally win. And then I realized that everybody on the stage is like 15. And I'm like, well, I guess I could win against them.
They used to have a show in England called Blockbusters, which they were like students, and then you had to go across a board, and one way was shorter than the other, and one team had one person, and one team had two people, and the people with the two people had a longer thing to go across than the one person. And it was famous because you had to pick letters to go across the board. And if you ever got a P, the guy who hosted it was Bob Holness, and you say, "Can I have a P, please, Bob?" And it was like hilarious, apparently.
That's the most random British humor I've ever heard. We might have to find a clip of that because that's just ridiculous. All right, Tim, what was your next song?
Okay, so as we move through my personal journey in life, as I'm reminiscing from birth to apocalypse, I think. Well, I need to bring something that's important in the realm of music to me. I know these are all songs, but something that's important in the realm of music.
Of course.
And I've decided to bring 1991's Van Halen's Pound Cake from the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge album.
Of all the Van Halen songs, you're the only one I know that Pound Cake would be the option.
Yeah, well, I discovered Van Halen with the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge album. I mean, I'd heard of the name, and hadn't been playing guitar for very long at that point. So it was my first taste of Van Halen. And I stayed up really late to watch the MTV Music Video Awards because we had satellite TV at that point, and they played it live. And of course, it was at 3:00 in the morning or something silly like that. But I stayed up to see it because I really wanted to see Van Halen, and that's the track they played. And yes, you can agree or disagree that it's not really Van Halen if it's got Sammy Hagar in it, but there was something great about Eddie's got his Makita drill and his stacks of PV amplifiers and Sammy Hagar and the whole thing. And I don't know, there's something about that changed my world at that point. And it wasn't maybe 3 or 4 years after that, I ended up getting a Music Man guitar, which is a brand of guitars I typically play all the time. I've been meddling about with PRS recently, but Music Man guitars are what I normally play. And I've always had the same kind of guitar that Eddie Van Halen had there. And I don't know, my whole musical outlook and taste changed at that point. And I think Pound Cake and the MTV Music Video Awards thing is probably the point it started.
Well, I mean, it is a very famous, one of the more famous, I guess, MTV Music Award shows. And we may have even talked about it before, but it's just random because, I don't know anyone who else besides Tim who you hear Van Halen. The first thing they go is Pound Cake. Yeah, it's so fun though.
I mean, I was listening to that song 2 or 3 days ago. It came up in my car on my driving home from work playlist. And I don't know.
Were you worried that the world was going to end in like 5 minutes when it came on?
No, I have a playlist for driving home called Driving Rock, where it's upbeat rock songs. So like if I've had a day at work, I'm getting my car and it's just like good tunes to get me back home.
That's fair. No, it's just funny because like I imagine you had already made your list at that point or were close to it. Probably. How long did it take you to make the list, Tim? Because I've already been debating it. It's hard.
It's a fully dynamic list. And I tell you why. I mean, let me give you a little sneak peek into my world. So
okay.
I load all the music on my phone off my computer, and I just randomly put albums on that I think I'm going to enjoy. And then on an iPhone, there's like a preview of recently added, and it's maybe 40 albums, 50 albums. And then what I do, anything in that recently added, I pick the tracks and put them on my various playlists. I've got one for just like listening to on shuffle in the car. I've got one for driving rock, driving home, and I've got one that I use for background music for the band. And then during the day, I listen to complete albums, and then when I've finished listening to them, I delete them, which then frees up space to put new stuff in. And as a result, all the things in the playlist, they end up going out. So you hear them a few times and they go off.
Smart. That just keeps you from getting burnt out of the same songs too.
Exactly. So at some point, I will listen to the whole of For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge at work, and then it'll get deleted out, and then move on to the next thing.
That's smart, Tim. Look at you, so logical. You're very methodic in everything you do. That's why when you were talking about where you keep all your storage, I was like, of course. He would have like lockers away and stuff.
Well, Hannah and I had this conversation because I've actually got her out of this habit. So when I get my credit card out in a shop, I take it out of my wallet, I use it, and then I put it back in exactly the same place it came for. So I know exactly where it is. Hannah goes into a shop, she pays for it, gets the receipt, and then just throws it in her bag, the card and the receipt.
So Charlie, my husband, every piece of all of his cards in his wallet are in the same, like they're in an order. And he gets mad if I go in there to take something out because I always mess up his order. And he's like, no, I can't find blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's in there. I just saw it. And he'll be like looking for his prescription card or something. And then he's like, were you in my wallet? It's an ongoing debate in my house.
Well, let me tell you, I think that Charlie and I are kindred spirits in that respect. And also, if he has real cash, does he have it head up in denomination order?
Yes.
But I get that from having worked in a what you call a credit union.
I just never have cash, so it doesn't really happen.
Well,
the
only reason I have cash is I play gigs and you get cash.
Exactly. And Charlie does a lot of gig work, so he makes cash and I don't.
Yeah, I mean, like Hannah rarely has cash. If she wants cash, it's normally I've played a gig and then she said, "Oh, I need $20 for something," and I'll give her the cash, and that's how it works.
Well, me and Hannah are kindred students in that. Because I was going, "Hey, Charlie, I need $20 for that potluck tomorrow." Can I have?
Yeah, and that's how it works in this house.
There you go, Hannah. We're the same in that one. All right. Now that we've explained all of our money processes, people are going, I thought this was a music podcast. Debatable.
No.
Debatable.
Well, on paper, it's a music podcast.
In theory. All right. So what is your next song, Tim?
Okay. So again, I'm moving through my personal journey and reflecting on my long life before this massive meteorite or meteor or whatever's going to hit the earth is coming.
What's the difference between a meteorite and a meteor? Is there a difference?
I have no idea.
Okay, well,
maybe I think maybe a meteor is a large thing and a meteorite is a small thing.
I'll give it a Google while you say the next song. Let's see.
Okay.
Now I need to know the answer.
I'd be interested to know what it is because I didn't know whether to use meteor or meteorite.
I don't either. Meteor or meteor.
Come on, Joy. What does the Google machine say?
See, all right. When a meteor survives a trip through the atmosphere and hits the ground, it's called a meteorite. When meteors are in the sky, so basically when they get to Earth, they're meteorites, but when they're in their sky, they're just meteors.
Okay. So I would assume, so if it's coming through the atmosphere, it's going to break up to some degree.
Yeah, and that's when it becomes meteorites. And that might be why, because it becomes plural. But if you're looking at it in the sky, it's a meteor. If it's coming to hit you over the head, it's a meteorite.
So what you're saying is in Flash Gordon, when they say it's a meteor shower, that's actually incorrect because they say it's a meteor shower and then the meteors hit Earth. It should be a meteorite shower.
There you go, Tim. You just found it.
There we are. I've found an inconsistency, a technical inconsistency in Flash Gordon.
And then it says, hold on. It does say if the meteor rock doesn't completely burn and falls, when it falls. So basically, most of the time when they're meteors, they haven't brought through their barrier yet. But most of the time when they become meteorites, partial of it is burned and split up. So there we go. Now you know, guys.
There we are. Well, I'm glad we could bring that to our listeners because I'm sure there's people literally on the edge of their seat waiting for this information.
It's hot off the presses, guys. All right, back to your meteorite.
Okay, so the next thing I thought, well, I've been through the world of Van Halen and I've discovered music. And then, of course, I'm going off and listening to other things. And as I said, reflecting on my life and my journey and stuff like that, I thought, well, I then got into other rock bands and AC/DC. Now, I love AC/DC. And again, it's like one of those acts that when I was much younger, I wasn't super aware of because there wasn't classic rock radio or anything like that in England at the time. But as I'd go into Van Halen and started reading guitar magazines and finding out about other rock music that I liked, I got into AC/DC. Now, for most people, AC/DC is Brian Johnson, which is later AC/DC. But as many people will know, the Bon Scott years are probably, I'd say better, but I think it's more pure in the realm of pure rock and roll. And as everybody know, I play in bands, and as I'd be reflecting as I see this meteor coming towards the atmosphere, I'll be reflecting on all the good times of bands. So how could I not have AC/DC's It's a Long Way to the Top if you want to rock and roll?
I assume that's where it's going because, Tim didn't write the song, but he might as well with the amount of times we've said it on this podcast. We use it in reference to so many things. It's a great line, though. And I do have a very nostalgic history with AC/DC. I told you it was the first band that I got into when I was actually way younger than you would think, because I make a lot of jokes about listening to all the pop music as a kid. But the first band that I really bought every album that was available to me was AC/DC. I went through like a 6-year period where they were my favorite. I don't even like them as much now. I probably burnt myself out on them as a kid or something, but there's a few good, few songs that I absolutely adore that, when I hear them, it makes me super happy. And that's a good one. Plus, it's kind of funny because Tim never got anybody to carry his, I wanted to say luggage, but it's not luggage, but nobody's carrying his luggage either, to carry his band equipment in and out of before the meteorite hits him. So as the meteorite hits him, he's just going, yeah. It really was a long way to the top.
Yeah, that's true. Because as we all know, the whole song is a rock and roll handbook. Everything you need to know about being in a rock band or what you're going to experience it's in the lyrics of this song. And you're right. So as this meteor is turning into a meteorite as it comes through the atmosphere, I'd be listening to this song thinking, no one ever did carry my equipment for me. No one ever did pack up for me. No one ever did settle my gear up for me.
But
Bon was right.
Bon
Scott was right back in 70, whatever it was.
He predicted this moment in my life. You see Tim staring at the sky going, it was a long way to the top. I feel like your moment in the movie where you're just staring at the sky. And then you just see the backtrack of all the good times and then all the times where Tim's don't really want to think about that one anymore.
There's been amazing times playing music, but there's also been questionable times as well.
Well, you did try to set fire to it. Well, a band member tried to set fire to what I think was a nursing home.
Well, it wasn't. It was Hogg with his pyrotechnics. It's in Stoke Poges, Stoke Place Country Club, and he was going through his pyrotechnics phase. So he used to get these pyrotechnic theatrical flash pots, and you know that from theatre what they're like.
Yes.
And you connect to a 9-volt battery source to them, and there's a little charge in the bottom, and they go off in smoke. And he sets them off in this country club, because, of course, a noisy rock band should be playing in a country club, obviously, playing AC/DC.
And a British country club of all country clubs.
Yeah. And then we sets these things up at the end of, I think it was Highway to Hell, and it had a very high ceiling. And then, of course, the smoke started to rise, and as it rised, it set all the fire alarms off. And next door was a care home, and it was either for people with some kind of disabilities or it was an old people's home. I can't remember. It was some kind of care facility. And because both the buildings were linked, they had to evacuate it, and then like 3 fire trucks turned up. It was not a good scene. However, the people in the country club didn't seem to mind too much. That's the thing about it. I was expecting them to say, "You need to leave now," and not get paid, but they just said, "I'll wait for it to go off. It'll be right. You can carry on."
That's the funnest thing that's happened to them in a while. It's a country club, Tim. Like, well, I mean, they got the true rock experience.
there we are. I think they fed us as well. I think there was some kind of like buffet supper that went with this gig.
It's like when you know how like when you go to like the casinos and they have the big buffets, and it's like Tim's just like. And you're like, I'm not even here to gamble, but I'm here for the buffet. Tim's like, man, we almost set it on fire, but there was a buffet.
Well, the funny thing in Vegas is that because of the COVIDs, a lot of those buffets went away. And I think a couple of them have come back, but they're not such a thing. And the other thing is they're not as value priced as they used to be. The idea is that they wanted people to come in so they'd get them.
And it was like $5 or something stupid.
Yeah, but now if you I follow a couple of Vegas Twitter accounts, and the ones that are open, I mean, you're looking at $30-$40+ a head.
That's crazy. I mean, I remember going to one in Wendover, which is mini Vegas. It's right over the border from Utah, because we used to go there quite a bit when I lived in Utah, just to go have fun. It's right there. You can take a bus. You don't have to drive. It's 2 hours that way, 2 hours that way. We called it the party bus. And they would give you like free $5 for gambling and a drink ticket or something. But I remember like one time we went, it was like $7 for the buffet. Mm-hmm. But I kind of am grossed out at the idea of buffets now. I don't think I'll ever be able to do it.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. Because like Golden Corral didn't really make it.
No, it didn't. Well, and buffets have gotten really outrageously priced in my book, too. It felt like if you went to a Golden Corral or you went to any of those things, didn't they say that they were getting more and more expensive every time you went to them? I
think so. Because do you remember we had CC's Pizza in Christiansburg?
Not when we had it here, but I've been to a CC's Pizza, so I know what it is.
It used to be right by Walmart. For our friends in England, they don't know exactly where this is.
That's exactly
up on the hill to the right by the Walgreens. It was up there. It's now a Dollar Tree, I believe. But CC's Pizza, certainly when I first started living here, it was a pizza buffet. And it was outrageously cheap. It was something like $7 or $8 a head. It was something almost as cheap as that. And the drinks were I think the drinks were expensive. Like you'd have a Coke or something and it was $3 or something. But the actual buffet was like about $7 a head or something. And you could just feast on as much pizza as you like. And it was not the best pizza I've ever had, but it was incredibly plentiful.
I mean, it was kind of, so a funny story about CC's Pizza. So they have a lot of them in West Virginia for some reason. I don't know why. I've just heard that. So I had a teacher in high school. I stayed after for MAC, which I told you I was a nerd. It's like a quiz bowl type thing I did, after school. Mm-hmm. And I stayed after for MAC practice. Well, maybe it was practice. No, we were going on a competition, but we had about an hour before we had to leave. So they let all of us go get food. Then we came back on the bus and went to the competition, right? Mm-hmm. So my dad had left me my twin sister like $20 to grab some food on her after it left. And there was a place directly above my high school. It was called Ciro's Pizza. And it was like one of those pizza, pasta, subs, think like Amelia's, like here in Christiansburg type places. Yeah. So we went up there. I think we went and got a pizza or something. And we were just, chomping away, eating, talking with our friends. And my dad couldn't remember if he gave us money or not. He got worried. So he ran to the school to give us some money to make sure we had food to eat. Well, he went to my math coach to see maybe where we were, because it was before cell phones. And he's like, oh, they went up to CC's And he was thinking CC's Pizza because it sounds like Ciro's. Well, my dad got mad and thought I went to somebody's house when I wasn't supposed to. And I almost got in trouble. And my math coach had to correct. I had to think about it because he's from West Virginia where they have a ton of CC's Pizzas.
Ah, got you.
So there you go. Yeah, I almost got in trouble for something I didn't do. Apparently, my dad thought CC was a person. Good dad, though. He did make sure I had money, and that's always a good thing.
There we are. Well, that's a good thing. All right. So my next song for this impending apocalypse. So it's the polar opposite in some degree of the Pound Cake song. So after I found out about Van Halen with Sammy Hagar, I went back and learned about David Lee Roth, Diamond Dave. So I figured as this was my list, I was going to have both eras of Van Halen in it because they're both equally important to me at this point. Okay. So I decided to pick, and there's a lot you can pick from in the David Lee Roth era. And maybe this is an obvious choice, but it's a song I enjoy very much, and the video I still enjoy because it's ridiculous. And that is Hot for Teacher.
I knew that's what you were saying because I remember you talking about the video previously that it's one of your favorites. And it is kind of ridiculous, but like in the best way possible.
Yeah, because I mean, it's a video you couldn't make now because not only did it take place in an actual school, it wasn't a soundstage. There's several scenes in it where someone is depicted as a teacher and then the room is full of school children, literally, and then they whip her dress off and she's dancing around in a bikini. You couldn't make that now. You imagine like a musician making a video like that now. It's like the world would implode upon itself.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't have anything to say. It's true. And to be fair, I see why it would in its sense, but think about the context of the song. I mean, that's what the song is about.
It fits the context of the song, and it's Van Halen, and they're rock stars and all of the above. But as I said, you could not make that video now. And the other good thing about that video is Alex Van Halen, who is the drummer, they have a bit where they're doing synchronized dancing, and his dancing is all over the place. Like Eddie is fine, Dave is fine, Michael Anthony is fine. But you look at Alex, who is probably one of the greatest rock drummers of all time. He cannot keep his moves in time, which is weird.
That's weird considering he's a drummer and they literally are the ones who need to have timing.
Yeah, that's what's strange. And if you watch it again and just focus on Alex Van Halen during the synchronized dancing thing, and he is a mess.
It just seems odd to me. To be fair, that's why I was always the worst drummer because I have delayed hand-eye coordination. So like rhythm is kind of important.
Yes.
So that's why I'm like, that's why I was a terrible drummer. Well, he can't be good at everything, Tim.
No, that's true. And the other thing I like about this track is that Eddie Van Halen's guitar tone is called the brown sound for some reason. But that's what it's called. It's his
You've
tone
said that before. Yeah,
it's a brown sound. And the tone he gets on Hot for Teacher is probably the classic example of what I would consider Eddie Van Halen's brown sound. Some people would say first album is more classic, but I don't know, 1984 Hot for Teacher, it just has that sound. And I think if I'm going out because of this Meteor or Meteorite, I'm probably going to want to hear that classic brown sound one last time.
That's fair. I mean, it sounds like it's a band that's just very important to you all around. So, of course, you'd want to hear it.
Sure.
I just have this image of Tim, like, just putting no cares in the world anymore for his HOA. And, like, he just turns it up as loud as possible. Maybe gets his own guitar and is playing along with it. Windows open. Like, it's like, I'm going to die in an hour anyway. Who cares anymore?
Well, to be fair, I could probably do that right now. Because even though I live in what they would call a terraced house, a townhouse, the people next door use this as a weekend house for football games. So we barely ever use them. And the guy the other side, he keeps himself to himself. And I think he plays video games and makes some noise sometimes when we don't say anything. So it would be fine.
I was just thinking of imagining some stuffy HOA person going, oh my God, what is he doing in there? But aren't you over your HOA anyway? Are you still over it?
I'm on the board, but I don't know. It's you just meet and talk about LED lights and things.
Did you tell them about your stolen trash can? recycling bin.
I've yet to bring that up. I think I'd like to keep that on the down low. I maybe wouldn't like. We've
announced it on our podcast.
Maybe wouldn't like to announce it on a public forum that people all over the world could hear. I probably would want to not mention that.
Oh, well, there was a whole episode about people taking pictures with their recycling bins and sending them to you from Paris. So. And for those who don't know, we talked about that on one of the conspiracy episodes. And we have a Zoom chat for me and Tim do as friends. And one night we discussed this. And one of our friends who's into graphic design drew a picture of Tim with the recycling bin and by the Eiffel Tower. Do you remember that one, Josh?
I do very much remember that. Yeah.
I don't want to give his last name away, but he was the one who did it. And so the recycling bin lives on. Yeah,
he knows all. And being a genius in that kind of realm with Blender, he just knocked it up in about 2 minutes.
It's true. It's just like Tim's recycling bin waving at him from the Eiffel Tower. Anyway, okay. That's the next song, Tim.
Okay, so the next song, maybe a little self-indulgent, but with the apocalypse was just about to happen. And
who cares at that point?
Yeah, I've recorded lots of music and lots of music that's been released officially. I mean, like you can go on Spotify. I play on the John O'Leary album. I play on the JJ Band. I play on his song Lockdown Love. I play on, there's a couple of others I can't even remember. Templeton Peck, the Pass the Bottle. But I think the music that's out there in the wild that's recorded, I'm most proud of is probably the Frequency album, because that was my first proper full-length album I recorded in a proper studio with a band, and we was young and we was hoping we was going to make it. And Ian Husbands had written some absolutely fantastic songs, and the rhythm section was fantastic. It was a good time. And the good people to be around, and we had fun with it. It really got nowhere, really. We played a lot of gigs up in London. We did a lot of VW Beatle festivals, and we had a jam night we ran every week that still exists in some form to this day.
Yep.
But I think if I have something that I would like to present to somebody as the most proud of, it probably would be the album Swimming with the Big Fish. However, the tracks on there, for me, some of the demo versions, I don't know if they're better, but maybe I prefer them. There's a few tracks where I can listen to the demos we made in pre-production, and I prefer that to the finished product. The finished product is very polished, and it's mixed and all that kind of stuff, and it's exactly what you'd want. But some of these demos, to me, are stronger. But, of course, you won't, unless you put a bonus disc out, you're not going to release the demos. But I like Hit and Miss. That is a fantastic track of Swimming with the Big Fish. But if I'm going to pick the version, I am taking the demo version from 2002, which was recorded a couple of years before Swimming with the Big Fish came out.
That's a very specific thing. Like Tim built a whole world around that to get to that. But I mean, it could be because like the demo versions, maybe because they are, I don't want to say rough around the edges, but more authentic when you're into rock and roll or something of that nature without all the polish and prestige. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, this demo was made by a guy, recorded and produced by a guy called Mark Leahy, who used to play in a band called Red Rocket. And he was probably the first person I knew that had a home studio. And we went around there and recorded it. Now, this doesn't have real drums on it. It has a drum loop. I think it has live bass, I think. But I went there one afternoon with Ian Husbands and cut all the guitar tracks. And there is one particular part I really like where I play a rundown and I play what I thought was a wrong note. And I said to Mark Leahy, I said, I think I need to do that again because in that rundown I hit a wrong note. And he said, no. He said, what you played actually sounded really good. And I was like, really? And then when we played it back, it actually does sound good.
Maybe it's just your brain overthinking it.
Yeah, and then when we recorded it for real, I played it exactly how the demo was because he was right. That note was correct. But every time I hear it, it just reminds me of the recording session.
Oh, okay. So it's special to you. That makes sense.
Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe one day Ian will publish the Survival Studio demos and the Mark Leahy demos as like an additional disc on Spotify for everyone to hear. But for now, they only exist on my computer and Ian's computer and my various multi-continental backups.
So, yeah, Tim's got one out in the French Riviera as well, just heading with all the backups to international waters in case it gets broken into. Okay, anyway, but it's almost like if we had some people who were members of a group that's seen Ian Husbands a lot, who listen to this podcast, they could bring that message out.
Well, I think maybe Ian doesn't want to release them because, swimming with the big fish is the final product. And that's what we put out to the world, and that's what we were very proud of and still are. But
yeah,
I said I like some of those demos. I like the feel of them.
Well, I mean, that's fair, and you guys worked really hard to get that final product, so I get it. But just saying, if there were some people who listen to this podcast who might want to just, ask him, hey, Ian, how do you feel about Tim might go with the flow.
Exactly. And they probably need to be, mastered or something to make them a little bit more listenable. But, there it is.
That's fair. Well, I mean, even if he just wanted to let you guys, or you know what I mean? He didn't want to mass produce it to the world. He could play it just for the people who are part of this group that we are speaking of.
There we are.
That's, if anybody didn't get it, that's just our Freak Jam friends. It's not that secretive. We've talked about them numerous times on this podcast.
Exactly.
All right. What's the next song, Tim?
Okay. So as we move through my life, which is flashing before my eyes as this Meteor Meteorite is coming, I decided to go with Steve Miller Band. And I'm going with Take the Money and Run.
I thought for sure that's where you were going to go. I had an image of Tim going, well, I got an hour left. Let me go to the bank.
Well, actually, no. Actually, that's not the reason. The reason I've gone with Steve Miller Band and Take the Money and Run is because my wife, Hannah, loves Steve Miller Band.
That makes sense.
And for many years, she would talk about how great the Mighty Miller was. And she has this theory that, if you go on a road trip or you go somewhere and Steve Miller somehow ends up playing on a playlist or a CD or the radio or something, you know that it's going to be a great trip. That's she's got this theory about if the Mighty Miller's involved, it's probably going to be great.
I mean, has she been wrong before? That's the question. Probably
no,
not.
We've it's come up on a loop, or we've been in a hard rock somewhere and they've played Steve Miller, and then we've had a great day. So I mean, I think her score on this is pretty high.
I mean, it sounds like she's good at this. Her and clapping songs, she's got it nailed down, truly.
Exactly. Well, Take the Money and Run is a clapping song.
I will say, yeah. I remember it was right up with the clapping episode. I will say, I did have an image, though, when you said that of Tim going, well, I got an hour left to win. He just goes, robs the bank and drives off with the money. Let's Take the Money and Run is played. That's what I imagined. But anyway, we had two different thoughts.
So anyway, I've included Steve Miller and Take the Money and Run because it reminds me of Hannah and her theory about stuff. So maybe if the Mighty Miller comes on, maybe this Meteor Meteorite actually is going to miss the Earth, because if it starts playing, it might change the events. I don't know.
Or if it does hit the Earth, it doesn't hurt anyone, or if you do perish with it, wherever you go is pretty fun. You never know.
There we are.
See, there's some optimistic.
That could be the case.
See, everybody, this is why I picked this episode, because I knew it'd be funny to really make you think about that. And the reason this came up, Tim, and I was going to say this earlier, I forgot. So me and my friends were all talking about one day, and this is really kind of messed up, but we had this conversation. If you were being put in the on death row in the electric chair, and they could broadcast it, and you have one song that everybody could see, what would the song be? And I said I would want it to be Rasputin. And it created this whole debate about why Rasputin. I said, because it's fun and it makes me happy. I don't have any logical reason behind it. And so that's what made me think of this episode. That's how I came up with the idea.
I think I'd probably go with the snowmen doing the hokey cokey myself.
That's quality. I mean, I say pokey, but tomato, tomato, it's fine.
I had the hokey versus pokey debate this morning. I had to give one of my co-workers a lift into work, and we was having a hokey versus pokey conversation.
I've never even heard cokey before. So had you never heard pokey till you moved to America?
No, I never had.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. But why would we change just one word? Why did we keep hokey? That's the real question.
Nobody will ever know.
But if you do know and want to write us, find us on Facebook.
Yeah, or send us a postcard or a sealed stamped address envelope. Anything you like.
Yes. And in return, Tim will send you a signed photo.
If you want a signed photo, I'll send you a signed photo
of his recycling bin. Tim just standing by the recycling bin and he signs it. We need to make that a thing, Tim. Anybody who sends the donate, we need to get a P.O. box and have people send, stuff to the P.O. box. And what we send back is just you by your recycling bins autographed every time. And then we slowly start moving it near monuments near us. 1 minute you're in front of a bridge.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Oh, God, okay. If anyone steals that idea, I'm going to be very mad. All right. How many songs do we have left, Tim?
We have 3 songs left.
3 songs left. All right. What's next?
Okay. So the next song I picked is from Blue Man Group. And again, my entire life journey is flashing before my eyes. So I decided to go with Utney Wireman. And now this is the version from Live at the Venetian in Vegas from 2006. And the reason I picked this is because I really like the music of the Blue Man Group. It is electronic, but it's not. Yeah. And it's instrumental and it's a bit weird and it's rhythmic. And I really enjoy the music of Blue Man Group. And if you haven't listened to Blue Man Group, check out their first album, Audio, or check out The Complex. I think you have to have an Apple Music subscription to get Live at the Venetian. And they had an album called 3, which was their most recent one. But Utney Wireman from the Venetian in Vegas, it reminds me of all the great Vegas trips that Hannah and I have done.
That's smart.
And again, before, because as many people know, I met Hannah on the internet and we chatted for 5 years before we met in real life. And she would many times talk about going to Vegas, but no one ever wanted to go with her. So the first opportunity we had, we went to Vegas and we had a fabulous time. And one of the shows we saw, not the first time, but the second time we went to Vegas was Blue Man Group. And I remember we had second row seats or third row seats for Blue Man Group. And this was their old show that was not at the venue at the Luxor where it is now. It was at the Venetian. And the whole Utney Wireman thing, it's just you see it in real life, it's completely mind-blowing. There is a video of it on YouTube, and we should actually post that up because they did a little documentary about it, and they did it. But I don't know, it represents some really good times in Vegas that we've had.
And that's really what you'd want to be thinking about is all the fun times you had in Vegas. I feel that. Well, here's the question. Did Steve Miller Band come on the playlist when you were on your way to Vegas?
I think it probably did.
See, Hannah was right on the money. She knew. It was so good that she predicted those trips by that song, and they were so good that in the last hour of your life, you want to think back to them. Good job, Hannah. You've got the test out. Her litmus test is perfect. That's adorable, though. I have been to Vegas twice, and I've been to Wendover plenty of times because I lived in Utah, and it's the mini Vegas. And even if you don't drink, even if you don't gamble, there's just so many fun things to do. Mm-hmm. Of course, I always ended up one night. Me and Charlie went into a casino in Wendover, and we walked in with $200, I think. And Charlie, my husband, he likes to gamble. I'm just gonna say it's what he wants to do when he's there. It's not like he's got a gambling problem. It's just when he's there, that's what he wants to do. Mm-hmm. So he was using it, and that was his gambling money, right? And at one point, he made $4,000.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and then he spent about a lot of it, and I think we ended up leaving though. We came in with 200 and left with over $1,000. Wow. That didn't happen normally. This was just one night. And I remember they had one of those rainbow cafes that you eat in. Do you remember the Rainforest Cafes, Tim?
Yeah, Rainforest Cafes. Yeah, it was originally in the basement of the MGM Grand, and then it's actually moved to last time I was there, it was in Harmon Avenue, which is opposite City Center.
Yeah, but they had a mini version in the casino. Was set up the same way. It was, I guess, the little off-brand. And you got all the tree. If you've never been to them, they've got trees all around you. It's you're in the rainforest. Mm-hmm. I can't remember if the food was any good. I have no clue.
The food is one step above Hard Rocks and the like, but it's still really, all those themed restaurants are really, it's just fancy diner food, really.
Yeah, that's kind of what I remember. But I remember I have a picture, and if I can find it, I'll post it on the Instagram. It's Charlie sitting in the Rainbow Cafe. Why would I want to say rainbow? It's Rainforest Cafe.
Rainforest Cafe.
Because it's a rainforest. But I'll go through my Instagrams and try to track it down, and we can post that one.
I would say the best one of those is not the Rainforest, it's the T-Rex Cafe, and that's the one in, I think it's called Disney Springs now in Orlando. It used to be called Downtown Disney, it's now called Disney Springs. And it's the same idea as the Rainforest Cafe, but it's dinosaur themed.
I never went in, but I've seen it when I've been to Disney.
Yeah, if you think of what the Rainforest Cafe is like, think of portions that are almost twice the size and a bill that's almost twice as much, but with fancier animatronics in it. It's worth it for the experience. Me, Hannah, and my mum went there, and it was fantastic. And it was hideously expensive for what it was, but we had a great time.
Sometimes that's worth it. You gotta spend a little to have fun every once in a while. And I mean, how can you really screw up dinosaurs, Tim? Dinosaurs will always be fun.
Exactly. Animatronic dinosaurs.
That's even better. It's even better. Maybe I need to get Charlie when he's doing his animatronics and make a little animatronic dinosaur. I want to make note of that. For people who don't know, my husband likes to build little animatronic things. Tim's seen a lot of them. And I think we're going to have to add dinosaur to the effect. But... And this will, well, they would have heard this by now. He's working on the Bananarama monster truck. That's in the works.
I like that. That's fantastic.
Anyway, if that doesn't make any sense to you, go back and listen to the last episode. Go. All right, Tim, what's your next song?
Okay, so the way I decided to end this, I've got 2 songs left.
Okay.
So this would be my final song. Song 9 would be my final song.
Okay.
However, I have a backup option. So the final song that I would have, just as this Meteorite is closing in on the Earth, would be Queen with The Show Must Go On. Because I thought it was poignant as this was coming in. My makeup may be flaking, but my smile stays on.
Yay.
The show must go on. And plus, I actually really like that song. Outside of the message, it's such a good song. And I know the song is basically Queen's I Want It All, but slightly slower. And if you listen to the chord changes, it's pretty much the same song.
Hey, that's actually kind of true. I've never thought about that. I'm going to have to go back and compare now, Tim.
Yeah, you listen to it. It's the chords and the way it travels through is pretty much the same, but at a different tempo.
Fair enough.
But the whole of Innuendo is solid, and it bubbles around being my favorite Queen album. But yeah, something about Show Must Go On. And when we saw it in the theaters when the Bohemian Rhapsody film was out,
yeah,
that played over the closing titles, and you hear that in a massive cinema with a huge sound system, and it's just fantastic.
Agreed. All right, what's the backup song then? All
right, so you've got that Show Must Go On, and you think that this Meteor, the song's going to finish, it goes and on, and then this Meteor is coming towards you. And then, by some kind of miraculous miracle, because we listen to the Mighty Miller, the Meteorite decides to take a U-turn, and then it just disappears, and it misses the Earth by feet. By meters, whatever your metric is, it doesn't matter. But it misses the Earth. And then you're like, wow, what happened? And then you put on Elton John's I'm Still Standing.
I wondered if that's, I didn't know that song, but I was like, it's going to be something. I mean, I'm Still Standing. The one that I can't say is Back are my two favorite Elton John songs. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I love I'm Still Standing. And I'm glad they have the video now on YouTube because they took it off for a while.
It's such a cute video, though, where they're in the sand and stuff and he's got the little hat on.
And they've remastered it. And there was a bit in it with the staircase where the video effects were really poor and they fixed it. And it's such a good video.
It is. And then it's like it works so perfectly. Like whoever did like the cuts where like when he turns and he looks, you guys can't see me, but Tim saw me. I physically turned and looked because it's like the way he turns and looks at the camera a few times when he's got the hat on and the outfit, and then you see the people in the background. I don't know. It's visually a really cool song.
It is. And my favorite, even I remember this from when it was on TV originally, when it was in the charts, is the Crab Man. Now the Crab Man, there's a bit in it where there's a bunch of dancers all lined up and they've got like body paint on. And the Crabman is like blue. I think it's 2 colors of blue. And he does some kind of like, he clicks his fingers and he sort of follows Elton John along, sort of looking at him. But he does this kind of like crab thing. So I always call him the Crabman. And whenever we watch it, it's one of these songs that I'll put on YouTube periodically because I like it so much. And I would say, Hannah, look, it's the Crabman. It's the Crabman.
I've got to go back and watch that because I know the point of the video you're talking about, but like there's so much like, for those who haven't seen the video, they're like on like a beach. It's kind of like, what do you guys call those things we talked about with the shovel and the bucket last time? It looks like one of those areas.
Bucket and spade.
Well, no. Like the beach, like you said, there's a name for them in England where you guys have the little beaches you used to go to or something.
Well, like sandy beaches type thing.
Well, no, you said there's like a term, that song with the people.
Seaside.
No, there was a term I didn't recognize in those people in that song. And the people who sang the Rabbit song, they also sang a song about a beach, and they called it something. It was the last song.
Margate.
Yeah, is that just the name of that?
It's not Margate. That thing was. I think that film was. It's filmed in Cannes in the south of France. You couldn't mistake Margate.
But didn't you say there was a term that you guys used to call those like certain things?
Well, because it's Seaside Resort.
Oh, I thought it was something cooler than
holiday
that.
camp. Holiday camp?
Maybe that's what it was. That was anticlimactic. I thought there was a cooler term for it, but not that one specifically, but it's kind of like that kind of feel. It looked like there was a bunch of people having fun around him. Of course, they probably weren't because they probably made them all leave for the video and everybody in there was there for the video. But, you know.
The interesting thing about the video is that is day 2 of the video shoot. They shot the whole video in one day, and then I think the director or something was a little worse for wear, and he fell in the sea with the can of film, and they had to film the whole thing again. That is a true story.
I would be so mad if I did that. Oh my God, I would. Oh, because you know he could never live it down. You remember that guy? He's the one who fell in the ocean, and we had to re-record that video. No, but it just completely gone forever. That would make me so mad. All right. Well, that would be one heck of a way to go. So, Tim, what we'll do now, everybody, is we have one episode where the next episode will be Tim's topic. Then the following episode will be my follow-up to this. And I'm going to do my 10 songs as if the world were ending. Okay.
So this is part 1 is what you're saying.
Yeah, you got to put a part 1 on the end of this. And we'll do a little reminder in next week's episode of the part 2 coming. There you go.
Okay, there we go.
Do you have anything else you'd like to say, Tim, if it were your last time to go?
Have a good time all of the time.
I thought I was just going to say bye. I was trying to lead him out to the bye, but it didn't work. That was a great ending. All right, bye.
Bye-bye.